here's what I've picked up in my library book sale scrounging lately. So this was supposed to be an exclusively library book sale haul, but just as I was turning on my camera, there was a knock on the door, and look what showed up. The final book. The box was kind of bulging. This book is humongous. Good Lord, and I have to finish this by the end of the month because I want to include it in my wrap-up. So wish me luck. Okay, now on to what this video is actually about, library book sale haul. Scarlet Letter by Nathaniel Hawthorne. This is a pretty beat-up library binding, but I don't own a copy of this, and it's a classic, so why not? Fun fact, well, fun fact for me, at least. Nathaniel Hawthorne was married to a great I don't actually know how many great aunt of mine, so I have a little bit of familial affection for the guy. Another fun fact, when I read this in high school, our teacher had us split into groups, and each group read one chapter and then summarized that chapter for the rest of the class. Was the absolutely worst way to read a book. My group had like chapter 11, so you had absolutely no idea what was going on. It's not a long book, so I ended up reading the entire thing anyway, because you couldn't even understand the chapter to summarize it without context. Chaladore's Lady by Anne Bishop, the 8th book in the Black Jewel series. I'm actually only up to number 6 so far in this series, but I have this for when I get there. This is one of my favorite fantasy series. The warning, it's got a lot of sex and violence, and it can be very dark. Breaking Dawn by Stephenie Meyer, the 4th Twilight book. I own the first 2 in this series, but didn't have Breaking Dawn. Strangely, there's a lot of copies of the Twilight series flooding library book sales lately. I'm getting the feeling it's no longer cool to like Twilight. Ah well, I have fond memories of reading these books, even if Breaking Dawn was a little surreal. I refuse to be a fair weather friend just because these books have gone out of style. So, I've decided that while at library book sales, I'm going to start picking up extra copies of books I already own, so that I will have a shelf of books that I can give away. I mean, why not? They're like a 25 cents to $1 at library book sales. And let's be frank, loaning books most of the time practically equates to giving them away anyway. And this way I can spread my love of my favorite books without feeling resentful when they're not returned. So, some books I picked up for that shelf are Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. I already own 3 copies of this, and I have a feeling I'll collect many more. This is a library binding, so it's sturdy and small and can be easily thrown in a purse. I'm to the edge of fanaticism about sharing the love of Austen, so this is just more ammunition for my armament. The Third Circle by Amanda Quick. Arcane Society book number 4. This is a paranormal historical romance series, I guess you'd say. This is also the first romance series I ever read, and I maintain a soft spot in my heart for it. They must have really overproduced copies of this book because every book sale or used bookstore I walk into has a copy of this, so I happily buy it and add it to my collection to give away. The River Knows by Amanda Quick. This is not an Arcane Society book, but it reads very similarly. I think it's supposed to be a historical romance mystery? Whatever. Anyways, I loved it. I already own this in paperback, but I found it in the library binding. I'm debating which copy to put on the giveaway shelf, but I'm thinking the paperback and keeping the library binding. New Moon by Stephenie Meyer. I already own this book, but I picked up another copy to give away. The Pillars of the World by Anne Bishop. This is from the same author who wrote the Black Jewel series I mentioned earlier. This, however, is less graphic. There's just one mild sex scene and little violence. So if you want a less intense introduction to Anne Bishop, this is the place to start. It reads like an old fairy tale myth. So, I need to clear off a shelf and dedicate it to the giveaway books. I'm due for a shelving reorg anyway for my entire collection, as everything is just kind of shelved by where it fits right now. I need to resize the shelving. I'm going to have to sneak peeks around BookTube for organizational ideas. Any suggestions?